Hey guys, it's Ashley here again at Utah Trike. We're gonna round out our racing trike experience and comparison. So we started out with riding the Carbon Trike and the ICE VTX. And then last week, Jan and I rode the Catrike 700 and the Carbon Trike. Well, today Jan and I are gonna ride the ICE VTX and the Catrike 700. We're gonna take it on the same loop. We're gonna swap trikes and then we'll talk about it and we'll see which trike is best for us and maybe for you. Let's get riding.
Yep, let's go.
It's a little bit later in the day today.
And a little bit warmer.
Yeah, a little bit warmer today. Doesn't look like we'll get caught in the rain, so we'll see if we get caught behind any trains today.
Might be a little bit more traffic, but we should be fine.
Yeah, I think the bad part about leaving later in the day is that we are going to get a little bit more traffic.
Yeah, well, today I don't want to go home early. I want to ride the trikes.
Yeah, right. So last time we rode, you started on the 700.
Yep.
And I was on the Carbon Trike. And when we were riding out, I rode on the rougher side of the road than where you are now.
Yep.
So the big things that we're going to be comparing today, you know, are our comfort and the high-speed handling and the climbing. You know, with the 700 we both rode last time compared to the Carbon Trike, I think we both felt like the Carbon Trike's a bit better climber.
Yes, definitely.
And when I went out the first time we did our comparison with the VTX and the Carbon Trike, I felt like both trikes were very good climbers, and the main difference was kind of what part of your body you were using to push.
Exactly, yep. Yeah, the seat angles were a little bit different. I feel like that on this one, we're a little bit closer. Your bottom bracket is still a little higher.
That's one thing that I've always found, especially when you're switching between both of these, is that difference of the bottom bracket height compared to the seat height is pretty apparent. Where the Catrike right now, like I feel like I'm pushing more with my quads.
Yep.
And I've always felt like the VTX, I'm using my calf muscles a little bit more.
I mean, we're just starting, so it's hard to really do a real comparison, but right now I definitely feel my calf working more.
Right.
But I'm still warming up, hard to say, but yeah, no, definitely in the calf, and I think it has to do with the inclination of the boom for sure.
So one thing this time around is we both spent a little bit of time like tweaking these trikes a little bit to fit us a little bit better.
Yes.
I know I brought the boom in on the 700 by probably about ½ an inch, and I saw you also bringing the boom in on the VTX a little bit.
Yeah, definitely I did that, which is really interesting because I really realized that even if we're about almost the same XM, like from one trike to the other, depending on the seating,
yes,
it changed the actual length of the boom.
Right.
I think the Carbon Trike core boom was way more out. I was feeling more.
Yeah, that seat really does not. It doesn't hold you in like either of these trikes.
Yep.
And so I feel like on the Carbon Trike, I'm sliding down quite a bit more, where like right now I feel like what I said last time, I'm in a cockpit.
Yep.
And I've got, you know, I've got this nice mesh seat, and I'm really liking this upper shoulder support.
Yeah.
I mean, that is, you know, that is great.
I know that right now, so far, it's a really interesting experience because the Carbon Trike, complete carbon, the VTX, aluminum frame with a carbon seat, and the 700 aluminum with the mesh seat. And right now I feel like I'm right between the carbon trike and the 700 comfort-wise.
Right.
When we were earlier in those more vibrating road parts.
Yeah.
I know what you mean when we talked about the seat last time. You're saying you could feel it in your voice and thing.
Right.
That's kind of, it absorbs better than the carbon trike, but the carbon seat still vibrates a lot. You can feel those vibrations in your body.
Right. Yeah, and that's definitely one of those things that I noticed when I was riding the VTX versus the carbon trike, because I felt those vibrations.
Yep.
And even though I've got a stiffer aluminum frame here, with this mesh seat, I'm not feeling it.
Yeah, no, you absorb really, really well.
Well, guess what? It looks like we're hitting the train.
Oh, yep.
Woo! Huh.
Well, technically we could ride under.
Yeah, right? We might be able to fit under the train.
I don't know if it's safe.
And as per usual, the train is not moving.
It's always a gamble with this train.
Right.
Like, should I turn around? I mean, in our case, there's no real point to turn around because the hill is right behind it.
Right. Now, I know we're waiting for a train. That's not what people are wanting to watch, is us sitting here waiting for a train.
Yeah.
You know, one of the really cool things about having a recumbent trike is that I'm basically pedaling around my lawn chair.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
I'm stopped right now. I'm totally relaxed. I've got a front seat view to this beautiful train going across. I've got this mountain view here. And, you know, this is such a beautiful day, and we get to just sit here and enjoy this for a second, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is definitely a plus. Actually, funny story from one of our former customers. He used to ride his trike to commute to work, and he told me, he lived in Twin Falls, he told me he stopped riding the trike to work and got back onto a two-wheel because in the morning he will fall asleep at the red light. So he will be like, I will just fall asleep on my trike because it's so comfortable.
Yeah, I kind of feel like if I just adjust this headrest just a little bit right here, I probably could take a nap. And one nice feature, like I mentioned it last time, on the Catrike, is that I've got the rear disc brake, so I can just engage that.
And
I don't have to hold this trike at all.
Yeah, right now I kind of have to put some pressure on the pedal. The trike if I don't, you want to ride by. But yeah, no, that's definitely something I always appreciated. Even looking at all the advertising for any brand of trike, there's always picture of people riding to beautiful area. And they're literally in their trike on the coast, facing the ocean, the mountain, and they're just chilling.
Right.
You know, like maybe have some food, some things, but they're still sitting on their trike and it's comfortable. That's one thing that's pretty cool.
Well, while we're sitting here, let's talk about, you know, some of the differences that these two trikes have. Just here sitting next to each other, you know, you can see like it's not just the seat, which is probably the most obvious difference.
Yeah.
But the handlebar positioning is quite a bit different too.
Exactly.
Where the Catrike, and one of the things I've always liked about the Catrike handlebars is that being a direct steer two-piece handlebar, they're really adjustable. So I can push these handlebars forward and backwards, and I can also rotate that angle. So like where they're at right now is just a completely natural position.
Yeah.
And then I've got these wrist rests and my hands just sit here.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, it's even easier to take a nap on this.
Yeah. Yeah, the VTX for that is definitely more like the carbon trike, no wrist rest. Not that we cannot put them on, but usually they're optional. And I know you can adjust forward, backward, but you cannot really adjust any side angles.
Yeah, and you probably wouldn't want to, just because they do sit down a lot lower.
They will way
so that's
lower.
one thing too. You notice, like when your upper armrest down, the ICE handlebars are nearly horizontal out with your hands.
Yep.
Where with the 700, they're up a little bit more.
I really like what ICE designed here to put those trigger shifter, this little pulley thing with this nice plastic box. That looks clean, it's sleek. The only thing I noticed compared to the VTX I'm used to with end bar shifter already is that when I'm turning, I'm a little bit more restricted in my turn radius because those shifter kind of come and hit me on the side. So, but I mean, that's always, you always have the option to go back to a hand bar shifter.
Right. I think I've said, like, I'm a big fan of bar and shifter.
Yeah, me too.
I like it's really easy. Like if I want to go all the way from my high gear to my low gear, I can, and then I can pull harder. Like when I'm pulling that front chain ring up, you can just pull really hard on it.
Exactly.
Pops right up. That is a really cool feature though on the VTX, this little cable management pulley.
Yep,
So,
which give a really clean look, and the cable will go back straight in the handlebar, so that's sleek.
yeah, the only other brand that I know that runs their shifters up and down like that would be ICE.
Yep.
And that's one of those things that people either are okay with or they hate.
Yep.
Is that ICE does that cable loop. And so you've got right on the top of your handlebars, you've got
those little loops, yeah.
And they'll do that with their brakes and their shifters like that.
The only thing, to be honest, I didn't ride ICE enough off-road. The only thing I'd be worried about is maybe in forest, if something will grab it, but I don't even think that will, because the way they run them, usually anything I come facing, they just push away.
Right. Well, you've got 2 inches of ground clearance on the VTX, so you're definitely not going to be riding off.
Oh yeah, no, this one, no, definitely not. I was thinking the ICE,
Yeah.
No, the VTX, I would never bring this guy off-road.
You're not going to take that off-road?
No.
No?
I mean, one of the racer I worked with did once, but it wasn't on purpose. He came a little too hot in a turn, and it was raining, and the whole trike slide out off-road.
Right.
He was able to manage to stay on it and not crash, but that's probably the only time.
So we both got the Schwalbe 1 tires.
Yep.
On there. So what'd you inflate these to?
I put them at 100 PSI.
Okay, 100 PSI.
Yeah, and I think those, if I don't mistake, go up to 120.
Yeah.
But I feel like that anywhere 80 to 100 is kind of the comfortable zone.
Okay.
For this type of road, yeah.
Yeah, and I found a lot, like when I'm running a high pressure skinny tire like this, the higher the pressure, the more puncture resistant it tends to be.
Yeah.
Where like when I've ran tires at the lower end of their pressure rating,
oh yeah,
they tend to absorb more debris.
Yep.
Where when they're harder like this, stuff tends to bounce off it a little bit more.
Well, and those are designed to be run high pressure anyway too. That's the other thing. Those, I mean, if you don't put enough pressure, you probably get a pinch flat just like that also.
Yeah, I used to run the Kojaks a lot.
Oh, yep.
And those were about 80 PSI max. And after a while, I gave up on them just because I had so many flats. It was always my front right tire.
Yeah.
So hey, it looks like we finally got the train going. So let's start climbing now, right? Okay, so we let all those cars pass us, mainly so we could ride next to each other and talk as we're riding here. So now we're climbing, and last time when we did this, I rode the 700 on my second lap. It was a little bit tougher to climb in than the carbon trike, but I gotta say right now, this is feeling pretty good. And I am liking that I have that smaller chain ring up front. I'm just taking this nice and easy.
Yeah, right now I'm really surprised because these triggers got actually numbers, so I can tell you that, remember last time I think on an 11 speed 8 or 9 gear.
Yeah.
Here I'm on the number 6. So technically I'm using a bigger gear ratio, but it feels like the trike just want to go.
Tell us about that VTX.
Yeah, I just dropped another gear, and knowing that, like I said last time, you can hear my breath, I'm out of shape, but I'm really amazed with nicely this Trike climb. Actually, I'm starting to get out of breath because I feel like the Trike is telling me go faster. So the acceleration climbing is really nice, really like it. The trigger shifter make it kind of easy, but one more time, they're right on the side. I would rather have my thumb and bar shifter just for a little bit more comfort, and because I'm used to them. I will say I feel more acceleration as soon as I push on those pedals. It's like I have a little turbo under my seat. The seat so far is good. We've been going straight. These got little wings, so right now I feel pretty nicely secure, but we'll see when we get into the downhill. Really like also this gear ratio. That's a Shimano crankset. I'm pretty sure that's their 50-34, which is nice. On the rear cassette, I think I'm pulling an 1136. All right, let's see this downhill with this seat. Ooh, that was hot. This
Wow, that is fun.
we got a little close call up there in the first turn.
Oh, with the car?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that is one thing where when you're sitting down this low, you gotta
look way more ahead.
when you're coming around cars, gotta make sure they see you.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah, right? I like that little curve.
Yeah.
Although it kind of reminds me of like when you go to Disneyland and you wait for a half an hour in line and then you go on a ride that only lasts a minute.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's kind of like what's most downhill are.
Yeah.
You just get forever to take up there, and after, like, poof, up, you're back down.
Yeah. So how'd you feel about that?
So
The handling there.
the handling was pretty fun. I cannot say you were behind me. Did you see the Trike at any point? I don't want to say drifting, but kind of getting out a little bit.
Yeah.
Because that's the feeling I had. I was like, oh, in the second turn, I felt like the Trike was pushing me out a little bit.
Sure.
But we're on high pressure tire, the road is not perfect, so with the bump that could have moved me out.
Yeah, I even felt that. I think that's more like it just rained, so there's a bunch of loose dirt on the road.
Yep.
I was feeling that too. My back end was sliding just a little
around.
bit.
Yeah, I like this seat better than the carbon Trike.
Yeah.
But it's still not as comfortable as the 700.
Sure.
Like you were saying earlier, the 700 is really a cockpit.
Yeah.
Here I didn't slide as much with the little wings, but I can feel my butt with the vibration. It's a little sore, which never happened on the 700. Whoop.
Did our first loop with me on the Ferrari red Catrike 700 and Jan here with the ICE VTX with that carbon shell seat. And now we're gonna swap pedals. So I wear these Shimano SPD sandals, and I went with the SPD system primarily because that's what Catrike uses, and so I can just jump on any kind of Catrike.
And so for me, it's really kind of more of a sentimental story. Those were my dad's pedals. I think we got them for him for Christmas 1990. Those were my dad's pedals. They're the Look system, which is a French design, a French pattern. So that's why I mostly ride those still. But definitely the SPD are easier to walk with. They integrate into your shoes.
Yeah, there was a time when I tried a bunch of different pedals out to see what I liked best. I think the SPDs mainly just won out because of convenience.
Yeah, they're small, easy to change, to swap, integrate into the sole if we need to walk. I know that on my commuter, if I use pedal, clipless pedal, that's what I will use.
The Catrikes all come with the combo pedals. I'm gonna be on the VTX here, and Jan is on the 700.
Just sitting in, my butt is already thanking me.
Yeah, I'm already feeling it. So I think I've commented before that the ICE carbon fiber seat, as comfy as it is, has that little crotch scoop that just doesn't feel like it hits me in quite the right spot. So it looks like you stopped me in kind of a high gear.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to shift.
Yeah, yeah. See, I made a point when we were stopping for me to get you at least into the lowest gear in the back here.
Sorry, if you want, I can push you to start.
No, yeah. So I gotta do that thing where I'm like mashing and clicking at the same time. Okay, all right. All right. Yeah, I gotta say, like right off the bat, this feels easier to pedal climbing. Like, and I think part of it is my leg position. Like my legs are down a little lower, so I kind of feel like I'm pushing more with just my legs. And then that hard shell seat, definitely easier to climb with.
Yep, yeah, I can say definitely I'm more comfortable, but the climbing feels harder. And I know I'm on the highest gear here, on the lowest gear, sorry. You want to go first?
All right, why don't you take the lead again?
Okay. Definitely feels harder to move this one uphill. More comfortable for my back, but like we were talking earlier, I feel my quad working more. Whew. Now, one thing I realized, I made one mistake earlier. The VTX on this model, which is a stock configuration, does have an 1142, which makes sense. A wider gear range, probably why I was feeling like I was more in the middle of the cassette. Which this one with the triple has an 1136, so that makes sense. But definitely I already feel you gotta push the Catrike more than the VTX if you want to get a higher speed. I'm not definitely going as fast as earlier with the same effort that I feel I'm doing. I wish we could get the performance of the carbon Trike and VTX with the comfort of the seat mesh of the 700, and that will be my dream trike. Now we'll see in the downhill, because in my memory I felt way better going down with this one. Like Ashley was saying, you feel like you're in a cockpit and really my body doesn't move. And now that I tried 3 of the trikes, I can definitely say that the shoulder part is really important on the trike, and this one really get my shoulder nice. I tried to figure out if, do you feel like we were as fast as earlier or slower? I mean, do you feel like you're faster than on the 700 in the downhill?
I feel like I was not going as fast. And for me, I think a big part of that was like I'm really feeling the road vibrations a lot.
Yeah.
And with my glasses on, like I was getting blurry.
Okay, yeah,
Like,
because of the vibration.
Like I really felt like it was bumping me around a lot. There was kind of one little divot.
Yep.
And when I hit that, like I felt it like really hard. And I gotta say, when I was on the 700, I didn't even notice that divot.
Yep. You know, that's why it's interesting, because I feel like I went faster on the VTX, but I'm more comfortable right now.
Sure.
So I feel like I can keep on pushing to go fast. When on the VTX, my butt already was starting to be a little sore.
Sure.
And definitely the leg. Big difference. I feel my quad way more.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing, is the different leg muscles.
Yep.
That we're using. Like I really feel like I'm using my calves and I'm using the bottom of my legs more.
Yep.
Where on the Catrike, I felt like I'm using more of my quads, and it's more of like a leg pressing motion.
Yep. Well, and the other interesting thing is, when we're going downhill fast, I watch my pen getting like filled up with hair, which I didn't really see as much on the VTX.
Oh, because your legs are up higher.
And because exactly, so I was feeling like, oh yeah, the wind come right under here and get into my legs.
Because that's the same thing that Davey experienced. He said, my pants are getting filled up with air.
Yep.
That's funny.
Which is also why I wonder, maybe that's why I felt slower. Because obviously that's more resistance.
It's the more air drag. That's gotta be it. That's gotta be it.
Yeah, the uphill, definitely I will go with the VTX or the carbon trike. If I was going to climb a lot, that would be my go-to.
That was like this loop around, I felt like the VTX was significantly easier to climb on. Even though on the 700, I had those additional gears.
Yep.
I would say it was easy enough to climb on. I don't know, one thing that's really got me is the difference in the comfort.
Yes.
And not just the seat, because you know this seat is comfortable for a hard shell seat, but I think that there's really no arguing that the mesh seat isn't more comfortable.
Yep. Oh yeah, no, night and day.
But one thing also I think that the Catrike really has is the arm comfort.
Yep.
Because like I'm noticing here, like this lower handlebar position.
Yeah.
And where my hands are, and the fact that I kind of have to keep a little bit more of a grip on the handlebars. I'm noticing the pull on my shoulder a little bit more.
Yes. That's one of the things I was saying. The first thing I noticed is the support from the bottom to the top of my shoulder with the 700.
Yeah.
Which feel really, really better. Especially when you start pushing hard on those pedals, your back is just against something. It's not like, even with the wings, it's better. But I still got the feeling of the carbon track also, where it's like, I would like more support.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like the Catrike is really designed for a more general population.
Sure.
When the carbon track and the VTX is really designed for these specific athletes who want to go fast, long distance, and obviously are skinnier than us, and also work a lot you know, the muscle in their back.
Right.
Because I'm not gonna lie, I work out my legs, but I don't really work my back muscle. I should probably do it. But
well, and it's kind of interesting too, because I feel like if you spent a lot of time training on, let's say, the 700,
yeah,
and then you jumped on the VTX here, I think it would surprise you how different the muscle usage is.
Yep.
It's much more stark. Like when I was riding, going between the VTX and the carbon trike, like you could feel it a little bit in different positions in your back, but I didn't really feel like the difference in the legs was that extreme.
Yep.
Whereas like going from the 700 to the VTX here, like it's a totally different muscle group.
Which is definitely true. I feel my quad up here, but my calf don't feel like they're working that hard.
Yeah, and steering and handling wise, like I really like how this steering feels so smooth on this.
Yep.
But at the same time, it feels a lot more sensitive.
Yep.
And I think that has more to do with the actual steering geometry than even the handlebars. On the 700, it feels like the faster you go, the more it wants to lock in and go straight.
Yep.
Where with the VTX, I kind of feel like it's very easy to move no matter how fast I'm moving.
And I think that's the thing. I will say the 700 is more forgiving if you make a mistake while steering at high speed than the like if you oversteer or understeer than the VTX or the carbon trike, which react immediately and won't give you the time to really try to fix the problem.
Right. All right, guys, we're at our home base here, and we're gonna find a nice shady spot on the grass. All right, guys, well, we're back at the shop here. It was a little bit later ride today, so it's quite a bit warmer than it's been the past few days. We encountered a little bit more traffic, but we did get to enjoy a scenic rest as we watched the train go by, so that was pretty nice. So let's kind of summarize here and talk about the differences. So I started out on the 700 and you started out on the ICE VTX here. And as we rode to the railroad tracks where we stopped, you were on the rougher side of the road.
Yep.
And how did that feel for you?
So the aluminum frame definitely absorbs more vibration, but the carbon seats still get quite a bit of vibration.
Yeah.
It's not, I would say, as bad as when I was on the carbon trike, but it's not as good as the 700.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's even when we were coming back a little bit, I noticed, there was more of that vibration. I almost felt like it was getting channeled by the shape of the seat into me a little more, especially when we were coming down that first hill and it's got some rougher road there, and I was definitely feeling it was a little rougher.
Yep.
So I would say, comfort wise, it's impossible, I think, to say that the mesh seat isn't more comfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, that mesh seat on the 700, I feel like it cradles you in at the bottom.
Yeah.
And it gives you that upper shoulder support.
Exactly.
That you need. And then aside from just the seat, the other comfort attribute, I think, is the handlebars. And like I mentioned that on the handlebars, where the handlebars, to me, just feel more comfortable. And it's a combination, I think, of the placement. They're angled in a little bit more because of how we set them.
Yeah.
But then also those wrist supports.
Yeah,
so your hands just kind of rest there.
And they sit a little higher with this specific seat, and that's true. That I think that's another thing too, is with those pads, with those wrist rests, they really absorb the vibration in your arms also, which is really nice.
Yeah, comfort wise, I definitely think the 700's the winner there.
Yep. Yeah, definitely, there's no doubt.
Yeah, and then, you know, the one area where I think like the VTX definitely has the advantage is climbing, for sure. I don't think it's quite as good of a hill climber as the carbon trike, but it's right there neck and neck with it. Like, it was a noticeable difference. I got in this, I was in a substantially higher gear on the VTX, and I was climbing that hill, and it was fine.
Yeah, no, that's pretty impressive. The climbing capacity of this one, the VTX and the carbon trike. I would have to ride them again next to each other, you know what I mean, to really feel the difference.
So if you had to choose a trike right now, and this was going to be your only and forever trike between these two, which one would you choose?
So between the 700 and the VTX?
Yeah, you said 700 VTX, you got to choose one of these trikes. That's going to be it.
That's a tough one. That's a really tough one.
See, I think for me, if it was that kind of scenario and I was going to have just one trike, and for a lot of people, that is the scenario.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people out there that they're looking for a trike, and it's already an expense that, you know, they're going to have to pay for, and they're not going to have 10 different trikes. They're going to have one trike. And I got to say, like, if you're just going to choose one of these trikes, it's going to be the 700.
Yeah.
You know, because the 700 is a trike I feel like you could ride every day. It's not going to be the fastest trike. Yeah,
of course.
It's fast though. The 700 is a fast trike, and I think even going down hills, like that's the trike. I would much rather have that for downhill riding.
Yeah.
You know, but of course then you got to balance it out. So if you're looking for a trike that you're going to ride, you know, mostly on the weekends, and you're racing, you're a more competitive rider.
Yeah.
I think that's where the VTX is really going to fit in, especially if you have a lot of climbing. If you're riding with groups of fast riders, especially fast riders on two-wheel bikes, unless you're out there riding all the time, I think the 700 is going to be a little bit of a disadvantage, where the VTX, I think, is going to hold its own more when you're climbing.
Yeah, and for me, I'm going to throw one more thing out there, but it's really because I've been trying to do that with two-wheel bicycle for years, the one that do it all. One thing that I like with ICE also is that this VTX has this configuration, but when we were talking about getting in different, like, things like that, I know that I could put some drum brake from the winter, for example, which keep me the same brake power that it's raining, snowing, or whatever. I like the modularity, but it's a tough one because I like you said, I think I like the speed, the climbing capacity of this one, and I always love climbing. I did a lot of climbing back in France, but the comfort of the 700, if I want to ride it on an every single day, go to work and things like that, definitely the 700 will fit the bill better.
Right.
And also price-wise, let's be honest, if you're on a budget, the 700 is gonna be at a better price than the VTX.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly sure what the numbers are because I haven't looked at the quotes. But I think the way that this VTX is built up, we're probably at least $2,000 more than what the
Catrike is.
So if it's worth going that extra 2-3 miles an hour, and for a lot of people it is, then I think the VTX is your trike. If you're okay, being a little bit slower, but being far more comfortable,
the 700.
I think that's what the 700 is.
One last thing I was just trying to add, because it's always important to me to know where the product is produced. It's another cool thing is that the 700 is American made and the VTX is UK made. And I think that's really rare those days. Most things are made overseas, which is not bad at all, but you're also kind of supporting either the UK economy or the US economy. That's another thing
Sure.
some people are really big into.
Yeah. Well, you know, the next one that we're going to have to compare is the 700 compared to the ICE Sprint.
And you're already reading my mind. I didn't want to throw
You
it
know,
out there
and-
yet, but
and I think that is going to be a much harder comparison
Yeah.
because we're taking the ICE Sprint is basically the VTX speed frame and everything, but then we're putting on a comfortable mesh seat, and we're even allowing you to have the opportunity to put front or rear suspension on it. So,
and I didn't want, that's funny because I didn't want to throw it in this video because I was like, oh, that's gonna be too much for people. But I've been
Right.
thinking that those two combined together, the first thing that comes in mind
Yeah.
is the Sprint. So I'm really curious to try
yeah,
that.
so we're definitely gonna have to do that test. Well, guys, I hope that you got something out of this video. I know I did, and anytime I can get out there and ride, I'm gonna take advantage of it. And so we hope that you're enjoying these videos, and if you have any questions for us at all, leave a comment, send us an email, give us a phone call, or just stop on by our showroom, and any of the guys here will be happy to help you.
And don't forget, if you like the video, to like and subscribe, and relax, spin fast, and ride trikes.
That's it. Take care, guys.
Have a good day.